I'm so excited to be here tonight with Congresswoman Yassamin Ansari to talk about an important issue that is going to impact Arizona residents this year. And it's important that we protect the vote right now. We have a historically unpopular president executing historically unpopular policies. Donald Trump is actively trying to rig the rules before voters even get a say. And tonight we're going to talk about why it's important to fight back. So, Congresswoman, welcome and tell us a little bit more about why we're here.
Hey, Aaron, thank you so much for hosting tonight. Hi, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Yassamin Ansari. I proudly represent Arizona's 3rd District. And tonight, we have people joining us from across Arizona, but from the entire country as well, to launch a really important campaign called Protect the Vote Arizona. So we all know and we've seen every single day Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress try to rip away our fundamental right to vote and attack our democracy in real time. From the SAVE Act that could disenfranchise millions of people from voting, to Donald Trump's threats to nationalize elections and get rid of vote by mail. These attacks have been extreme. We saw the SCOTUS decision attacking voting rights as well. And so Arizona also continues to be on the front lines, because what happens in Arizona is that our Republican state legislature tends to copy all of the crazy things that Republicans here in Congress want to do. So we are seeing a massive attack on our voting rights in the state. We have Republicans trying to refer measures to the ballot that would restrict vote by mail, which has been trusted and verified and so popular in Arizona, used by Arizonans for decades. And so we are launching Protect the Vote Arizona. This campaign is very exciting and attempts to do 3 things. We are going to, first of all, defeat far-right extremist attempts to go after our voting rights in the state of Arizona. Second, we are going to enshrine vote by mail in our state constitution. And third, this is part of a broader national effort. We are building a national coalition to protect our free and fair elections across the United States. And it's really exciting, but it's also going to be a ton of work. So I'm excited to talk to you all about that. And Aaron, thanks again for hosting. We have massive goals we have to hit. We have to collect 500,000 signatures in Arizona by July 2nd to qualify for the ballot. And so we need everyone here tonight involved, engaged, because what happens in Arizona is going to set the stage for what happens across the entire country.
And I think we're going to have some exciting guests tonight talk about the importance of this ballot measure. AOC's up next. We have some great
Yeah.
folks coming up soon. Now, Congresswoman, tell us a little bit more. I mean, I think a lot of folks saw Arizona in 2024 and 2020 as really kind of the gravity defining kind of place where voter suppression tactics, these allegations of voter fraud happening. What's it like on the ground right now? Is there movement in support of what we're doing tonight?
There is a ton of movement. So we have done polling, and the data backs us up very clearly. More than 80% of Arizona voters support vote by mail and support common sense voting access and voting rights in our state. People in Arizona, just like they do across the country, love to vote by mail. And to your point, we have seen Donald Trump and far-right extremist Republicans still question our elections in Arizona. We've had crazy people like Carrie Lake. We have Congressman Abe Hamadeh, who's still there. These people are still out there, lawsuit after lawsuit, that they continue to lose, questioning the validity of the 2020 elections. I mean, it's embarrassing, but they aren't backing down, because you have Donald Trump in the White House. He continues to spew these crazy, egregious lies, and so this is very serious. These are our fundamental rights. We know that we are on the right side of history. We know that the American people, no matter their political party, are behind us, but we have to make sure we enshrine these rights in our Constitution, because we know that the other side is bending over backwards to take away our rights.
Now, what do you tell folks tonight who may not be from Arizona, who may be wondering, why should I care about this ballot initiative and what we're doing? What do you say to that?
I mean, Arizona continues to be one of the most important battleground states in the country. We are always on the front lines. We are lucky right now. We have, 2 Democratic senators. We have a Democratic governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General, but it is a tough, tough state. And so I think that if in Arizona we can show broadly to on the national stage that we support voting rights, voting access, protection of our right to vote by mail, I think that will tell a very important story and have reverberating effects across the entire country. And on the flip side, if we allow our rights to be taken away from us by an extremist state legislature that is just, is doing everything in terms of like essentially copycatting everything happening here at the federal level, that will also have reverberating effects. So that's why I'm just so excited that we have so many amazing leaders tonight, just an incredible lineup. As you mentioned, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We have Progressive Caucus Chair Greg Casar, Robert Garcia, Congressman who's the ranking member of the Oversight Committee, Ro Khanna. We have amazing new media leaders. I mean, everyone gets that this is so important for the country. So I'm really excited to see what's in store tonight.
So 500,000 signatures by July 2nd. That is
Yeah.
a daunting task. That's a lot of signatures. How do you expect to get there? And what do folks, if they're watching and they want to kind of get it organized, get involved, what do they need to know?
So even though tonight's the official launch of the campaign, we started moving very quickly as soon as we realized we had to make moves on this campaign. So we have an amazing ground game going on right now. Volunteers across the state are collecting signatures. I think we've already collected more than 50,000 signatures in just a matter of weeks. But we need to raise money so we can have a massive mobilization effort across the state of Arizona to collect these signatures. We also know that Republicans will do everything possible to challenge the signatures and get us off of the ballot. And so we are tonight, if you're in Arizona, please visit our website, protectthevoteaz.com. You can sign up to volunteer. You can find out how to sign the petition yourself. You can donate. And if you're not in the state and you're tuning in tonight, please chip into the campaign, whether it's $5, $50, $500. Your donation will help ensure that we can get on the ballot, because we know once we're on the ballot, we're going to win this thing.
No, for sure. I mean, I think it's an exciting movement, and I'm so excited that you're leading the effort from Arizona. I think a lot of folks on here tonight are going to really talk about the urgency of the moment, really how to mass mobilize, because you have some of these, like you said, progressive leaders who really did this for many years, and they're going to do it now tonight as well. And I'm so excited for the next progressive leaders that we're going to have come on here tonight. So I'll kick it to you if you have any last words before we kind of get moving along in this program.
Yeah, so I'm excited to announce our next segment, because, as I said before, this is not just about Arizona. This is about attacks on our voting rights across the country, and there's no one better to talk about the stakes, to talk about the importance of a campaign like this than my colleague and an absolute icon, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she is joined by activists and another icon who has been at the forefront of some of the most important fights in this country, Carlos Eduardo Espina. So I'm going to hand it over to them, and I hope everyone has a great time tonight. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank
Of
you.
course. Thank you so much, Yasmin, for all of your work. And it is a tremendous honor to be here and to help support the cause and make sure that we get the Protect the Vote Act in on the ballot.
Yeah, no, same for me. Really cool. I love being in Arizona, whether it's digitally or in person. This time it's digitally, but I'm just really excited to be here. And then obviously excited to be with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, having a good time because politics is fun and so is getting engaged. So yeah, obviously we're talking about the situation in Arizona, which relates in many ways to what's happening at a broader scale in the entire country. So I mean, if you're ready, I have two questions for you, and then I'll let you take the floor from there. Okay, so the first one is, and since I'm kind of nervous, I have them written down just to make sure I don't mess up. But the first one is, um, right now across the entire country, not just in Arizona, we're seeing efforts by Republicans to, have all these initiatives to basically strip people of their right to vote, make it as difficult as possible. So the question here is, why is it so important right now for a state like Arizona to take action and enshrine protections like vote by mail and other protections? And how does this fit into, the bigger, broader national narrative?
Well, thank you so much, Carlos, and thank you for the question. I think we are at a moment where we all need to understand something very clear, which is that the Supreme Court just declared war on the right to vote and on voting rights in the United States of America. And this has been the culmination of a lot of work to try to separate and attack the right to vote on a state by state level, on a municipal level, and on a community level. And so first it's about eroding some of the racial protections from the Jim Crow South that were enshrined in the Voting Rights Act. And they went after it in the South. They went after it based on immigration status. You know, if you are a naturalized US citizen, they're going after women with the SAVE Act and the women's right to vote if you are married. And so they're trying to go after all of these things through separate battles. And after the Supreme Court decision that has affected voting rights nationally, we need to understand that our fight is also national. Every single one of us, I tell my team this, we got to grab a mop. Like when we talk about a problem, I say, we got to grab a mop. No one is exempt. We all need to pitch in. And so here in Arizona, our task is to collect 500,000 signatures to get enshrining of voting rights in the Constitution on the ballot in November. That's the task in the state of Arizona. In the state of New York, if they're going to shred districts that are protecting Black communities and the Black right to vote in the South, that means in New York, we got to grab the mop and we need to redraw our congressional districts to provide balance to any potential attacks on redistricting in the South, which Louisiana has already declared. And so we're seeing Louisiana declared that they want to roll us back. Arizona is now coming into play and say, we're going to put this forward. And that's how we really understand that this is not just about the state, this is about the United States. And this is about Arizona's role in the balance of the country, not just in the balance of the state. And so to that end, I cannot sing Congresswoman Ansari's praises enough in helping lead that fight in her own home state in Arizona. And whenever we send the flare up, everyone's got to rush through those doors and come to help. And so I'm so excited to be doing this with you today, Carlos, and making sure that we're supporting so many of our folks in Arizona that deserve to have their right to vote protected.
No, exactly. And I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because Arizona is a state that for many years people thought, oh, would never vote Democrat. And then it flipped. And now, we're seeing all these attacks. And I guess the question that comes to mind, right, is, when I think of Arizona, I think of, the hundreds of thousands, potentially millions. I don't have the exact statistics, but I know there's a lot of Latinos like you and me in the state of Arizona.
Absolutely.
And so, I worry, especially for our community who maybe doesn't have that facility of understanding the process, especially people that I speak to, which is the content that I make every single day, trying to inform. This is going to be a very big hurdle to overcome some of this oppression that we're seeing. And so, how do you think specifically, everything that's going on in Arizona and the rest of the country is going to affect, or is affecting already the Latino community, and why it's just so important to make sure that we're able to protect these rights?
I mean, absolutely. A lot of what is said in the voting rights space is that, as you mentioned, a lot of people didn't think that Arizona would ever vote blue. A lot of people don't think that or haven't thought it about other states in our country. But one thing that a lot of people do know in the voting rights space is that a lot of red states aren't just necessarily red or Republican. They are voter suppressed.
Yeah.
And so it's less that there are more Republicans than there are Democrats, and it's more that the voting rights of communities that have historically voted for Democrats have been slowly eroded over time, and it's been an uneven playing field. And so for our community, it's more important than ever. The role that Latinos play in elections is getting bigger and more decisive. And it is only going to become more decisive as time goes on.
Yeah.
And so we have a responsibility to protect our role in this democracy, to protect the roles and rights of others in our democracy. And that's how we care for one another, is
Yeah.
making sure that we protect our voting rights and that we protect our say,
Yeah.
especially in a moment like this. And what is encouraging about it is that if we weren't powerful, they wouldn't be trying to do this.
Well, that's exactly what I was gonna say. A lot of times I feel like these voter suppression efforts might have that dual effect, which, right, they want to suppress the vote, but there's other people who might draw motivation from it in the sense of, hey, they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't, fear what we could do if we vote in mass, if we show up and vote. And so that's kind of the messaging that I try to focus on as well is, hey, yes, this is an obstacle to overcome, but the fact that we have to overcome it in the first place should give us, some sort of, hey, our vote matters and motivate us even more. Same thing when they talk about, sending ICE agents and all these other things to the
Mhm.
voting booths. It's like they wouldn't be doing this if they weren't scared of what they know is coming in November, which is, a change. That's what everything seems to indicate. I think that's what we're working towards. And so hopefully, we are able to have that dual messaging. Yes, we need to enshrine these rights and, fight back on everything they're doing, but also understand that it's a sign that they're scared, it's a sign that they're worried, and it's a sign that we have power. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's always, I feel like a lot of times it can get really negative, right? Like, oh, they're coming after our rights and they're doing all this stuff, but there's the flip side of it. If they're coming forward, it's because, they're worried of what we can do.
That's right. It's that our community is powerful beyond measure, and the
Yeah.
power of the people is powerful beyond measure. We saw that in Minneapolis this
Yeah.
year, right? When I started coming in, and it was people of all backgrounds
Mm.
saying, no, that's my neighbor,
Yeah.
that's my teacher, that's my coworker, and I'm not going to let you do this to them. And the power of all of us together is insurmountable. And
Mm.
as we saw, all of that organizing, ICE couldn't stand up to it.
Yeah.
And the politics couldn't stand up to it.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these folks, they want to awake a sleeping giant.
Mm.
And if they want to wake us up, pa'lante,
Yeah.
arriba, let's do it.
No, I agree 100%, right? I think it's one of those things where they might be overplaying their hand in the sense of, hey, they think they can stop us, but these efforts, are thankfully, through events like this and other stuff that are doing, are leading to more organizing, more activism, more people, standing up and, pushing back against everything that's going on. So I always try to see these things from a more positive lens, and I think that's the way forward. And obviously, with leadership like yourself and everyone else in Congress and other elected offices who are, pushing back, and especially, people who just are everyday working class people who are see what's going on and are sick of it or tired of it. And
Mhm.
I do feel hopeful despite everything that is going on. But that said, those are the questions. I mean, we could keep talking. I don't know if like Aaron's gonna jump in at some point and be like, we have to start talking or something. But there was I mean, if we have time, there was another thing that I wanted to mention, which I'm interested to see your take, right? And it's remembering that at the end of the day, just the immense privilege that we have to be able to vote. We know a lot
Mhm.
of people in this moment, right, who are being persecuted or living in fear, don't have that same right. And so, what I always tell people is, hey, we have to be the voice for those who can. We have to stand up for those other people who perhaps don't have the same privileges that we do. And so, just really, hitting that message home so people realize just how important this moment is. Because I always talk to people who might say, hey, well, my vote doesn't matter or this doesn't matter, or, they're never going to take me into account. But it does matter. And like you said, it's being proven by the fact that they're trying to strip us of it. But bigger than that, we know that, in states like Arizona and other places, the elections are decided by 1%, 2%, even less at times. So I think that's really, if I had a closing message, it would be that just realize how important your voice and your vote is in this moment and always, but especially in this moment.
Absolutely. We are difference makers. And we're even seeing in some of these special elections that are happening
Hmm.
how powerful and influential it is when people in places like where Mar-a-Lago is, or in places in the South, where people think Republicans would always win, there's no shot, Democrats have no shot. We are flipping in impossible places.
Hmm.
And the one note that I want to leave us on is we are allowed to have fun while we are
Yeah.
destroying fascism. We are allowed to inhabit joy, and we are allowed to cherish one another, and we are allowed to celebrate our victories. And in fact, oftentimes, and I think that is also maybe a cultural thing, the side that is having the most fun often wins.
Yeah.
And so, yes, this is a dire time. Voting rights are being stripped. Everything's too expensive. And we will have fun turning the page and making the crooked path straight and making sure that we're turning a path towards justice, towards affordability, towards voting rights. We're allowed to do both of those things at the same time. So thank you, Carlos. Thank
Yeah.
you, Aaron. And
Yeah, I saw
Thank you.
Aaron came in, so I think that's our cue to
Thank
kick
you.
it
yeah,
off.
we're
Yeah,
getting
thank
played
you
off.
so thank you so much, Congresswoman, and thank you, Carlos, for joining us. It's a perfect segment to kind of jump into our next segment, which is really talking about how to mass mobilize. And I'm so excited to introduce three real fighters in this space: Congressman Robert Garcia, Congressman Greg Casar, and Jack Cottrella, who's going to be leading the conversation with the two members of Congress. They're going to talk about really how the redistricting effort in other states have gone and how Prop 50, for example, in California, can really lead the way to help with mass mobilization efforts. And I see Jack hopping in right now. Jack, how are you?
Doing well, doing better now. Always good to see you, Aaron.
Good to see you too. And I see the congressman right with us as well. I'm going to leave you guys to it, but thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for hosting, Aaron. Well, Congressman, always good to see you, especially on a day like today, where Howard Lutnick seems to be trying to avoid letting anyone have any information that might be pertinent to an ongoing Epstein investigation and the president's desire to hide all information. Of course, we want to talk about the topic of this event, but I feel like I would be not doing my job if I didn't ask you, what was your takeaway from, I want to call it the testimony, but like the lack of testimony from Howard Lutnick today and what he was trying to obscure with his kind of non-answers being reported by some of your colleagues today?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously our oversight lawyers who are incredible and our oversight team, of which Rep. Ansari, who's obviously a huge leader in what's happening today, were there and they asked the tough questions. We know that Howard Lutnick basically is a bold-faced liar. The man said he didn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein after 2005. Then he goes to his island, goes into business with them, communicates more with them, and actually visits his home amongst other things. And so, look, why is Howard Lutnick lying? It's the same question why so many other Trump cabinet officials and others continue to cover up for the horrific abuse of women and children. So we are not going to stop till we get justice for the survivors.
And it's part of the reason that we're having this conversation tonight is how unpopular, not just with Democrats or independents, but Republicans as well. This issue has really splintered their party. This, full-fledged effort to cover up all of the Epstein files is, you still talk about the 3 million files that Todd Blanche doesn't want out there and has now been, put in the AG shoes to make sure he stops it from happening. Of course, you on oversight are going to be doing work to make sure that he can. But right now, of course, Donald Trump sees how unpopular he is. He knows that he's not just flailing with MAGA, but he's flailing across the country. I think it's part of the reason why he is demanding elections essentially be canceled to redraw maps, or that Republicans do whatever he says to make sure that they are suppressing the vote. It is just as much of an effort to block voting and disenfranchise people as it is to make sure the Republican Party is still falling in lockstep. We obviously saw California hit back against this. What needs to be done aside from joining in on this campaign to make sure that mail-in voting can be protected in Arizona? What needs to be done by folks around the country to make sure that we're protecting voting right now?
Look, first, what you're all doing here, obviously in Arizona, protecting the vote, protecting the right to vote by mail, ballot access, all of those early vote. It's so important to the broader fight we have across the country. Look, in California, when Texas went to redistrict those states and those seats that Donald Trump demanded the governor do, California and our governor responded. We passed something called Prop 50, which basically did a redistricting plan across the entire state. It gave us 5 additional seats in response to what Texas did. For myself and I took on more Republicans, by the way, than any other Democrat in the entire California delegation. And so even though my seat is much more Republican now, even though it's still a blue seat, we have to take those sacrifices and take those risks for the broader good. If we don't have a majority in Congress, what's the point? We got to pass legislation. We got to stop the Trump administration. So Republicans, particularly those led by Trump in this MAGA party, are going to try to get us and to stop us from voting. They're going to make it harder. They're going to try to discourage people to vote. They're going to work and do everything they can to push back on this. And so it's important for us, like what you're all doing in Arizona. It's so ballot access, early vote by mail, ensuring people have information about how to vote is so important. And so what we did in California, we've got to continue to replicate. Other states are doing it. You saw what happened in Virginia. That's a direct response.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep those efforts going.
Yeah, and Congresswoman Yassamin Ansari is leading this charge right now in terms of fighting back against this Republican effort, because John Thune in the Senate, as we've talked about on my show a lot, has said that it's not really a priority to get the SAVE Act through because he knows it would likely fail, because it is that abhorrent that even Republican senators are saying, I'm not too sure about this. Part of that is abolishing the filibuster, which they don't want to do, but it's also just a bad piece of legislation. It would restrict voting access. It would seek to disenfranchise people. But Republicans bring this argument to all of the rhetoric that they use about restricting ballot access and your ability to vote. And they say, well, it's common sense to put these protections on because we want to make sure that people aren't voting illegally. It's not common sense what they're proposing. It's making voting more difficult, more costly. Can you rebuke and debunk some of these lies that Republicans usually tell, especially about your state when it comes to the way that they're trying to protect voting as this guise to actually crack down on ballot access?
Yeah, let's be really clear. Everything you said is correct. Let's be so clear. There are so few verifiable acts of any type of illegal voting or some kind of voter fraud that generally does not exist across the U.S. It certainly doesn't exist in California. And the few times that it happens is so rare that it's caught and it's fixed. We should be really clear. The reason why in this country we have voting that is decentralized from the federal government is exactly for this check and balance system. Most voting takes place at the county level, at the local level, and it's local registrars, it's local county supervisors that are actually managing the voting process, or perhaps sometimes in some cases cities. And that's so, broadly speaking, states and the federal government are out of the process. And so there's no scenario where every single county registrar or voter is basically coordinating with themselves for some type of voter fraud. It's ridiculous. In places like California, the reason why they want to restrict the vote is they want to make it harder, plain and simple. We win elections. And when you think about the Constitution, right now they're saying, well, we only want US citizens to vote. Hey, I got news for everyone. Only US citizens can vote in elections. It is illegal for a non-US citizen to vote in an election. It's not possible. It doesn't happen. And so to say that is the reasoning is ridiculous. So they want to confirm, they want voter ID. What they want is they want women and others who haven't changed their last name to be stopped at the ballot box, to make it harder for them to vote. You already need to register to vote, and there's a process for that. Let's make it easier, not harder to vote.
Yeah, and if you want to get involved with that, I got to make the plug because this is so important. The work that Congresswoman Yassamin Ansari is chairing up here is so important. ProtectTheVoteAZ.com. There needs to be 500,000 signatures garnered in Arizona to make sure that this measure gets on the ballot. That is a lot of work. That is a lot of organizing. If I can push you a little further, besides the fact that this is important to get this cause done for the sake of this cause, that is also extra organizing that Democrats will be doing on the ground in one of the most important states in this midterm. So this is not just about this single ballot measure. As important as it is, this is extra organizing. This is more people getting trained to get out in the field. That is the type of work and reps and organizing power that we need to be putting in. So ProtectTheVoteAZ.com. Go support, even if you are not in Arizona, if you're not from Arizona. If you're a fan of the Phoenix Suns, it doesn't matter. Make sure that you are going and supporting. This is such an important effort, and we need to be doing everything we can. Donald Trump is clearly trying to interfere, steal, blow up our midterms. Let's make sure that he can't. It's the most important thing we got to do right now.
Absolutely. And look, I want to give a shout out to Congresswoman Ansari as well. She's a member of our oversight committee team. She's doing a phenomenal job in DC, representing Phoenix, representing Arizona, and obviously is doing a great job with this effort as well.
Yeah, doing incredible work. And I think that this is, I'm going to say, a campaign that I think everyone should be supporting. I'm going to pledge $1,000 matching donations to everyone who's going to go right now. We're going to be able to track it. So go donate, because I'm going to be matching your donation as well. We got to make sure, well-funded, well-organized. Y'all get out there and support. And I think our friend Aaron is going to be jumping back in with us. Aaron?
Thank you guys both. Thank you both so much. Congressman Jack, great to be here with you tonight. And yes, as Jack said, go to protectthevote.com right now and make sure to donate. Make sure to pledge your support for this movement. I think this is a great transition to our next guest, which is Congressman Greg Casar and Tommy Vitor from Pod Save America. We're going to bring them in right now. They're doing great work. Greg, Congressman, great to be here with you. I think we're going to bring in Tommy right now. Tommy, I'll let you take it away.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. And I just want to say that Jack is way too tall in person, and it's offensive to me, and I would like it to not happen anymore. My name is Tommy Vitor. I'm one of the co-hosts of a show called Pod Save America. I'm also one of the millions of citizens in this country that are very worried about Republican voter suppression efforts that are happening all across the country, especially in the wake of the Supreme Court decision about the Voting Rights Act, where they just gutted it. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. Thanks to everyone who joined the stream. We are joined today by someone who has been on the front line of these fights, fighting against the Trump agenda, fighting against voter suppression, fighting against gerrymandering. Congressman Kazar, thank you. It's great to see you.
Good to see you too, Tommy. Thanks for being here and supporting this effort. It's really important what Congresswoman Ansari and all the folks in Arizona are launching here today.
Yeah, it really is. So Texas Republicans are like the OG gerrymanders. I'm old enough to remember like Tom DeLay.
Tom DeLay started it at first. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting a little trouble for this stuff, maybe going to jail. Good old days. Can you talk about this latest redistricting fight that you've been a part of in Texas and how you think it relates to what we're seeing in Arizona?
Well, look, just about 1 year ago, Donald Trump's numbers started going downward, right? He thought he was untouchable, and folks went and started pushing back against the billionaires that Trump put in charge of everything. People like Congressman Robert Garcia, who was just on, or Congresswoman Ansari, went to El Salvador and pointed out what Donald Trump was doing to our immigrant family members and even to U.S. citizens. And it started to turn the tide on what Donald Trump wanted to do with the country. So what did Trump do? He said he couldn't win, so he decided to try to cheat. He called the governor of Texas and said that he's entitled to 5 more seats in Texas. And that is when we started to see, always first, Texas is where we see what the right wing is going to try to do to suppress voters first. And so they decided to try to carve Texas up. I was already in a very gerrymandered state. They decided to put that gerrymandering on steroids. And while it was a place where they did that damage and were successfully able to pass that map and get this corrupt Supreme Court to let it go into effect, it's also where the backlash began. The backlash in Texas led to backlash in California. That is why Prop 50 was able to pass in California, because what they did to Texas, it fired voters up in California and in Virginia and beyond. And what I'll tell you, before we get into any other questions, is look, part of the reason that Donald Trump did this, and what I heard from Republican colleagues in Congress, was they said, essentially, the Democrats are Mr. and Miss Responsible. We're Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and we're not going to punch back, right? They can change the rules and cheat, and we'll keep on playing by the old rules, right? They'll bring 7 players onto the basketball court, and we'll keep on playing with 5 over principle. And thankfully, we recognized in this moment that there is nothing good about that, right? That we have to be willing to fight fire with fire. And I think ultimately we've got to be able to do is to say, we will strike back in other states if they keep gerrymandering in some states, but then with the promise of, if we take back power, banning gerrymandering nationwide, ending super PACs, crushing this kind of corruption and voter suppression, and creating a system where voters decide who their politicians are rather than the other way around.
Well said. Yeah, I mean, as you said, the Republicans started this fight, this mid-cycle redistricting fight in Texas. California responded. Gavin Newsom, mopped the floor with Donald Trump here in California, where I live. But now we're off to the races. There's this tit for tat cycle. It's not at all clear when it will end. How do you think progressives in Congress think we should respond to these gerrymandering efforts going forward, in particular, in the wake of the Supreme Court's ruling that just gutted the Voting Rights Act?
Look, we have to recognize that the Republicans will change the rules, that the billionaires don't, they don't say, well, this is the way that things are, and so we're just gonna leave it that way. They were willing to overturn Roe v. Wade. They've been willing to overturn the very parts of the Voting Rights Act that people like MLK marched and died for. They're turning back the clock on things that we thought we had won 60 and 70 years ago. So we have to be just as ambitious in our quest for good as they have been willing to be in their quest for sending us backward. In my view, if we need to both hold Donald Trump accountable, show how bad he is, but then also have a positive vision for people, show people what Democrats are for, show people that we believe that you should have an affordable life, be able to take care of your kids, pay for housing, your childcare shouldn't cost as much as your rent payment, your mortgage payment does, be able to save some for retirement, take a little bit of vacation, have your basic rights back, and win on a positive affirmative platform. But then when we have power, be willing to use it, not have the filibuster in our way of passing civil rights, not just let the Supreme Court do whatever it is they want. Take on those powers that be and pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, permanently ban gerrymandering, do something with that power when we have it, because I think voters are looking for that kind of strength from us. And if we don't, we can see how much worse things can get.
Yeah, amen. And it could always get worse, as we've learned in the Trump era. Well, listen, I think that is all the time that you and I have here. I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining. If you live in Arizona, make sure you sign the petition to codify this fundamental right to vote into the Constitution in Arizona. You can do that at protectthevoteaz.com. If you're watching and you don't live in Arizona and you know somebody that lives in Arizona, text them, call them, check in, say, hey, how you doing? How's your family? How are your kids? Then tell them about how important this issue is. This kind of relational organizing is the future of everything we're doing here, and is so, so important. And then if you want to donate or you want to volunteer, again, go to protectthevoteaz.com. They have lots of easy ways that you can get involved. This is really important, just as important as what just happened in California with Prop 50, where we showed we can win. So thank you, everybody, for caring.
Big time. I know I hear from people all the time, Tommy, like, what can I do? And this is something that you can do in Arizona. I know a lot of folks feeling like, what can my elected officials do? I've found that it's everyday people, like the folks that can sign a petition in Arizona, or go vote in California, or go march in the street in Minnesota and Minneapolis after what ICE did there. It's the people, I think, that are going to get us through this. So this is something you can do.
Amen. Well said. Well, I think, Aaron, will be back to you now.
Yes. Thank you both so much, Tommy, Congressman Katsar. Great to have you both tonight.
Thank you.
Like Tommy said, make sure to go to protectthevoteaz.com right now if you can. And I'm super excited for our next panel. One of my favorite members of Congress is on, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, who is the reason we have the Epstein Files discharge petition passed. She was the last signature Congresswoman. Great to be here with you. And also one of my good friends, Katie Fang, an amazing independent journalist. I'm going to let you guys take it away. Katie, Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, you represent Arizona's 7th. You are, by all accounts, a fighter. I wanted to make sure we had this conversation because people need to know where you just came back from. And the reason why it's incredibly relevant to making sure that we keep a strong stance against these ridiculous draconian immigration tactics that we have seen from Republicans. So Congresswoman, would you just let people who are tuning in right now understand where you just came from and why it's so important to make sure that we have the right representation?
Well, I'm Adelita Grijalva, and I proudly represent Arizona's 7th congressional district. So we have the 300 miles with the U.S.-Mexico border right here in this district. And I just came back from Dilley, Texas, and was at that detention facility. And it is the only facility in the nation that houses moms and children, families, in theory, together. It was traumatizing. And I think that once you go to any of these spaces and talk to people, see what is going on, you can't unsee it. And it is our responsibility to protect people in our communities, like the DACA student that is in detention waiting, a professor and her husband, also a professor, where DHS just pulled their security for no explanation whatsoever. A mom who has an 8-month-old baby in NICU, like right now, and cannot get a hold of her husband to find out what's going on. Those are the stories that we, like when you go in there, they're ready to tell you, and all they want is for you to be able to help them. It is something that it breaks your heart. I can't look at these moms in the eye and not cry with them, because I think about, what if that were my baby? What if that were my niece, my nephew, and I couldn't help them at all? And that's the kind of stuff that what we're trying to do here with this Voting Rights Act is really is the elimination of the Voting Rights Act by the Supreme Court is going to devastate communities of color, marginalized communities more than any. And that's my community. That's the one that I represent, and I probably lived in my whole life.
And this is the reason why we are spending time talking about Arizona specifically. Arizona, I want to remind people, has had a very unique space when it has come to voting. Arizona, since 2004, has been a show your papers state. And then it also recently had citizenship purge laws enacted as well. So Arizona is already operating from a place of stricter, right, voting enforcement and restrictions. And so for Arizona to now be facing the possibility of having illegal gerrymandering and redistricting, when Arizona has an independent redistricting commission that should be allowed to do what it's supposed to do, but we've seen how they're going to try to change things because of the Supreme Court decision. So Congresswoman, you know, this is your state. This is your home. How important is it for people to understand that protecting the vote in Arizona really is the epicenter of us having to focus on things right now?
Well, what we see, especially in Arizona, is that this is where these horrible laws come from.
Yeah.
Like we're the petri dish of what these look like English only laws and attacks on people and, you know, stereotyping people and targeting people because of what they look like. That's something that's been a reality here in Arizona, and especially Southern Arizona, for a very long time. So here in Arizona, Latinos make up about 32% of Arizona's population, and only 2 of our 9 congressional districts are majority Latino. So we know what it looks like when you don't have representation, because we've already been gerrymandered. So this gap shows that representation can fall short when communities are divided or diluted. And that's what the Supreme Court decision wants to do, period. And we've had an independent redistricting commission here in Arizona. I was a part of it for a period of time, but instantly, when the Supreme Court decision came out, we had state lawmakers here in Arizona ready to change. And that's the kind of pushback that we have to protect this space, because it's just like proposals like the SAVE Act are going to make it significantly harder for eligible voters to register and to vote. And then we hear, you know, this threat from Homan just recently about, we're going to put more force into your communities, especially those Democratic communities that, you know, are showing like we're welcoming to people. They want to make sure that you know, the presence is felt there, and it's all about voter suppression.
Well, and you and I speak Spanish, and there's a phrase that I like to use, no hay pelo en mi lengua. There's no hair on my tongue. People know that you and I are straight shooters, and that we are incredibly honest and transparent about what's going on. It's about the racism, okay? You came from Dilley, you know, you talk about how, you know, and it's so important to keep the immigration issues front and center, because I think they want to flood the zone and they want to overwhelm us and not have us pay attention to the fact that these family separations and these horrible detentions are going on. But the racism is the root of this, just like the anti-immigrant rhetoric we hear from the Republicans because of this Trump regime. They don't want brown and black people. They don't want people like me, Asian Americans. They don't want us to have voices and to have agency to be able to vote, to change our lives. And so why should we be making sure that we stand strong right now? Because I feel like if we just, you know, look at what just happened with the Supreme Court and say, you know, there's really nothing left for us to do, that we're just sealing our own fate. And that's not how we're built.
No, and we can't do that. We have to give people hope that there is a way out of this. Because if we just give up and lay down and say, you know what, things are going to happen the way they're supposed to happen, they win. Because if we keep to the same rules that have been established, Republicans know that they're going to lose. That's why they keep changing the rules. That's the only reason why we're in this situation right here. They know that our message is resonating with people, and we have to continue to organize, fight back, protect the right of every American to participate in our democracy. That's the way it should be. So that's why all of us are here tonight. That's why we're here. And Protect the Vote AZ is a way for us to get involved. ProtectTheVoteAZ.com, you have to go there. You have to volunteer, because as one of the people that is here representing Arizona, Arizonans, we know our power. We know we have never backed down from a fight. We're not going to back down now. We have to get people excited about people power, because that's the only way we're going to win this and get ourselves out of this.
We also need to get 500,000 signatures from Arizonans by July 2nd on a petition. Congresswoman, we're having this conversation. It's being broadcast all over the country, all over the world. People are tuning in and they understand and they hear us, but especially to those that are in Arizona, how important is it for them to go and sign this petition by July 2nd?
It is our job. It is what we have to do. This is not a joke. Protecting our democracy and right to vote, the ability to be able to vote by mail, the ability to not have to show a passport to vote, that's what's at stake here. And what they want to do, especially if you are in underrepresented communities, you're a person of color, you are not at the upper echelon of the moneymakers, we're the ones that they don't want voting. So we have to show up and show out and bring people with us. So I'm literally here at our headquarters because that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be getting signatures, knocking on doors, getting people motivated and excited to fight for our democracy. That's what we have to do. And there is no way that we can be silenced. We are the resistance. We are the power that is needed in this moment, and we need each and every one of you to get it done.
Well, Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, it is always un placer to pasar tiempo contigo. It's a pleasure always to spend time with you. Aaron Parnas is here to be able to escort us out of this Zoom room, but I just want to say thank you. Go to protectthevoteaz.com and make sure that you get involved. And if you're in Arizona, you heard the Congresswoman, she told you it's your job. You got to get that signature on that petition.
Let's do this. Hasta la victoria. We can get it done.
Congresswoman Katie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This next panel is going to be a really good one that I'm really excited for you all to listen to. It's Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas, who has seen gerrymandering firsthand on the ground. My good friend Elizabeth Booker Houston and Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, who is joining us, I believe, from Arizona. So welcome. Elizabeth, I'm going to let you take it here. Go ahead, Elizabeth. It's all you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Hey, everybody. So I'm joining you from DCA because I'm on my way to Nashville to address what we see going on with my hometown of Memphis and the redistricting. So it's really great to be here in this moment with folks who are understanding the urgency of this moment and who also understand what it's like to have the place where you are from, where you live, that you love affected. And so with that, I really want to kick it off with you, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Welcome to the live. We saw a lot of what was happening on the ground in Texas. And, you know, I got to be there in Austin watching what was going on with the gerrymandering in Texas. Can you talk about and then not just that, but also we saw with the voter suppression in Dallas during your primary. So I was also there for that. And witnessing that was just very sobering. Can you talk about the elimination of voting centers? What kind of barriers are you seeing in Texas that are popping up and who's getting hurt from that?
Yeah, so first of all, let me just say thank you so much to the Congresswoman for organizing this. Obviously, I don't represent Arizona, I represent Texas, but you just heard from the incomparable Adelita Grijalva. And obviously, we have the Secretary on as well. But I just want to say this. The reason that I'm on tonight is because what impacts one impacts all. It is time for us to get out of these silos of this ain't my business, this ain't my state. Unfortunately, most bad ideas come out of Texas. Whether we look at what the Heritage Foundation did as they went after quote unquote CRT and introduced those bills, or the heartbeat bills, or the voter suppression bills. This didn't happen overnight. This is something that they have been working at from the gerrymandering and working that through the courts. We know the Shelby v. Holder case was so integral in making sure that the southern states, which historically had been found to be intentionally racially discriminatory, they were able to get away without having Big Brother oversee them when they got rid of Section 5. And as soon as they got rid of Section 5, we saw what they were trying to do to our districts. Listen, I've been engaged in litigation against the state of Texas since before we got these lines, because the lines that are currently serving are disproportionately impacting people of color. So let me just frame it like this. As Elizabeth said, she's off to Tennessee, and I want to make sure that she gets to the secretary. The reality is that they have gone for the jugular on everything. When they decided to stack this court and deny President Obama his rightful appointments, that was all part of a larger scheme. When they decided that Section 5 was going to be gone, which Justice Roberts was so very happy for that, they weren't going to stop there. They have been going after Section 2, which was basically the last thing that we had standing. And to be clear, Section 2 was doing nothing more than elaborating on what it is that the Constitution says. It says one man, one vote. It says that we get equal representation, but right now that's not what they want to do. And so they not only have gone after the lines, but they also have decided to do the confusion, which is voter suppression. Whether it's changing the laws and going into all the different courts, it confuses people, or starting to say that certain things are now criminal, making people get nervous about participating, especially people that are the sole providers of their families. They don't want to risk going to prison or doing something like what we saw in Dallas County. Dallas County has 22% of its population is African American. It was not a coincidence or an accident that they decided during the primary for the Senate race that I was engaged in, where it just so happened that a Black person was on the ballot, that they were going to target Dallas County. Harris County is a larger county, but they don't have a higher percentage of African Americans. We know that African Americans typically understand the assignment. And so they decided that in Dallas County, one actually, and Williamson County, 2 of the 254 counties, after years of being able to vote at whatever voting centers you wanted to, on election day in this primary only, they decided that you had to go to your precincts. And at the same time that they decided that, the websites were crashing. The websites were crashing where people could figure out where it was. There were people that went to 3 and 4 different locations just to vote. Let me tell you, not everyone has the privilege of having the time nor the gas to go around and travel around. So it's been voter suppression as it relates to the new laws around voting, as well as changing these lines, as well as rigging the courts. So with that, I will yield to the secretary and Liz.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Secretary Adrian Fontes, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, which I feel like this is a great moment for people to understand what their state level Secretary of State does, because you are so important in this moment and so key to this moment. And we really appreciate you being here for this live. Can you talk about some of the challenges that your administration is facing, and what it is that you hope to do or plan to do or will implement to try to make sure that we protect Arizonians? Is it Arizonians? I always feel like I question myself. Okay, good.
Arizona.
What will be done to protect their right to vote?
Yeah, it's just Arizonans. We don't need extra vowels. We already put the AZ in crazy, so we're good to go here. Great to be on here with Representative Crockett and everybody else on. Look, this call is protectthevoteaz.com is where we can make things happen. How has our job at the Secretary of State's office been made harder? We have had to deal with unjustified and not based in evidence challenges to one of the best voting systems in the United States of America. We have ballot by mail, no excuse absentee voting. We have 27 days of early voting here in Arizona, and we were the first state to implement online voter registration. But slowly but surely, after we saw an expansion of a lot of voting rights and a lot of advocacy, some folks started feeling politically threatened. And so they've been trying to constrict the rights, as the representative just talked about, some of the very same things that she was just addressing, they've been trying to do here in the Grand Canyon state. And we are, of course, concerned from our perspective, because as the chief election officer, our job is to make sure that the counties do their job well, that they have the resources, that they have the rules that they can follow to do the job for their voters. And when you're in an environment where the rules are always shifting, there's lawsuits all over the place for no really good reason that are actually going to hurt voters. That becomes not just a distraction, but it makes it difficult for those of us who do this work on the ground. And remember, I was the Maricopa County Recorder, which is the second largest voting jurisdiction in the United States. Shout out to the representative, but we surpassed Harris County when I was the county recorder because we brought in so many new voters. But it's a difficult task. It is a complicated task. And so we need folks to be engaged. We need folks to be informed. We need folks to get out there and make sure that they are making a difference. Apologies for the noise here. I'm in my backyard. The bottom line is this. It isn't really that important about how hard my job is. What is most important is how much harder they're trying to make your job as a voter, how much less they're trying to allow you as a voter to be able to exercise that voice. And we've had attacks against vote centers here in Arizona, in Pinal County. We just unfortunately lost a case about the Americans with Disabilities Act compliant equipment that disabled voters use to cast their ballots. One county in Arizona won't let vote center models even on that equipment. So those voters that have a hard time getting around anyway, and then this makes it more difficult for them. So look, there's a lot of things we can do. And here in Arizona, protectthevoteaz.com is where you can go. This is critically important, folks. Now, while all the signatures have to get got, you got to help get them. While all the volunteers have to get coordinated, you got to jump in and help. Go to protectthevoteaz.com and volunteer. Sign up. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here with the representative and with Elizabeth and with Aaron and all of these good folks. I'm so happy to be here. As the Secretary of State, I'm going to keep fighting for every single voter so that we can actually fulfill that dream that is the United States of America. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
you
you
all
so
for
much,
being here.
Secretary. Oh, and thank you, Aaron. And I just wanted to add on the end of that, if you don't live in Arizona, you can donate money. Your money is
Yes.
good across state lines. So do that too. But thank you, Aaron.
100%. And it's super easy to do. Just there's a QR code to the right of my head right now. You can go there and you can donate money now. Congresswoman, Secretary Fontes, Elizabeth Booker Houston, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really, really appreciate it. Our next panel, I'm super excited about. We have Congressman Maxwell Frost, one of the youth leaders in Congress, and I'm so excited to have him here. And then also Deja Fox, who is an amazing, amazing Arizona activist who just ran for Congress as well. Deja, I'm gonna let you take it from here. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, happy to be here in live from AZ, where we have a really big fight ahead of us. But Representative Frost, you got some things going on in Florida too. So tell us a little bit about that before we get into this Protect the Vote AZ.
Yeah, well, obviously, look, they're trying to take away the right to vote across the entire country, but especially in the South, right? Them trying to essentially go back to Jim Crow, add everything they can in terms of poll taxes that are disguised as other things. It's now illegal to hand out bottles of water to people who are waiting in line to vote in the state of Florida. Every year or every election cycle now in the state of Florida, the vote by mail list gets purged. And so you have to re-register to vote by mail every single cycle. And now, in case people didn't hear, they have done a mid-decade redistricting in the state of Florida to essentially dilute Black and brown voters and take the congressional delegation from 8 Democrats to 4 Democrats.
Yeah, and I think that's indicative of this like larger trend going on in the Republican Party, which is that instead of just change their unpopular stances, they would rather change the rules, right? And here in Arizona, what I think is so cool about this Protect the Vote AZ work is that one, it's proactive. We're getting ahead of these Republican shenanigans. It's community led. And you mentioned mail-in voting. One of the things that Protect the Vote AZ would do is enshrine mail-in voting in Arizona's state constitution, which is so important and something that is, I think, I mean, it seems common sense, right?
Oh.
So many folks like me grew up seeing our parents vote exactly like that or vote in person early. And so, I want to ask you a little bit about how this affects young voters differently than it might affect other people, whether it's in Florida or in Arizona. How do these attempts at voter suppression impact young people?
In such a huge way, especially when we talk about mail-in voting and especially when we talk about students who oftentimes are registered to vote back at home, wherever they live, could be in the same state, but might be hours away, especially in a big state like Florida and other states as well.
Yeah.
And so what I always see when I'm on the campus of University of Central Florida here in Orlando, and I'm talking with young people about voting, is a lot of the time they'll say, yeah, I'm registered back at home. I got my mail-in ballot. I'll go ahead and put it in the mail and send it over there. My first pitch to them is always, you should re-register to vote where your college is because you live here now for 4 years and you care about the local issues. But
a good pitch.
A lot of them, but a lot of them will do mail-in ballots, and that's part of the reason why Republicans are coming for mail-in ballots. They're also doing everything they can do to make it harder for students to vote. Here in the state of Florida, now you can't use your student ID to vote, even though it has a lot of the same information your driver's license has. And so all of this stuff that's going on is really meant to stifle young people from voting, Black and brown people from voting. And it's going to have a ripple effect, which is obviously meant to help Republicans. And you put it perfectly earlier, Deja, which is their policies are so unpopular. Gas prices are on the rise. We're in this reckless war in Iran. The president's doing nothing to bring down prices. Prices going up. We're in a housing crisis. Homelessness is going up. Foreclosures are going up. And instead of saying, let me do something to help people, he's saying, let me cheat, gerrymander, and suppress the vote. And so I love this campaign and I love Protect the Vote AZ because you guys are being proactive. You're not waiting until the bad bill is getting ready to be signed. You're not waiting till the bad bill is like about to be in the legislature. You're saying, let's do it now because we know they're going to come for our vote. It's a matter of time. And every state should really follow this plan that you guys are doing in Arizona to protect their vote.
Yeah, and it is something that's so actionable and tangible. We need 500,000 signatures by July 2nd, which might seem like a lot. But the ballot initiatives I've been a part of here in Arizona, when you knock somebody's door and you tell them this common sense thing, right? That you want to make sure that young people can vote, that you can vote by mail, that you can vote early in person. People are really willing to, one, open their door, two, talk to you, three, sign. So a little call to action before we come to the end here. If you haven't signed and you're an Arizona voter like me, make sure you do. You can go to protectthevoteaz.com to learn more about that, but don't just stop there. Go and hit the doors. It's a really amazing opportunity to practice, to get out into community, to have good conversations. And if you're feeling hopeless and frustrated at the news right now, I promise you the solution is taking action. And there's nothing better than collecting signatures towards something as winnable and actionable as this. I want to share Asterix's personal story that I left Arizona for college. I went to the East Coast and I absolutely was a vote by mail queen. And if I hadn't had that option, I was a first gen low income student. Ain't no way I had the money to fly back home to vote, right? That just wouldn't have been a possibility. And that doesn't mean that our young folks shouldn't have the opportunity to have their voice heard or be a part and participant in their communities. So I'm so glad you lifted up that real life example because I think it gets lost in the wording, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like from an organizing perspective for people listening, ballot initiatives are fun.
Right. They are that girl. People love a ballot initiative.
I remember as an organizer, like fresh out of high school, all the campaigns I worked were for candidates. And like we love candidates.
Whoa, watch out.
Yeah, we've both been candidates. Yeah,
Right.
candidates are great.
But I will tell you, it's easier to knock doors for an issue.
Exactly.
It's
And the
true.
cool thing, I just remember my first job, not for a candidate, was working for Amendment 4. I was the field director.
Yeah.
And Amendment 4 was a ballot initiative to get people with previous felonies the right to vote in Florida. And it is to this day still one of the most proudest moments of my life being a part of that, but also just getting the knock on every single door, not just
Yeah.
Democratic doors, not just Republican doors, but every single door to talk to people about what we believed in, despite what their party registration is or who they voted for, taught me so much as a young organizer and as a human in my community about what people around me cared about and why they cared about it. And you'd be surprised at all these divisions that people put us in, all these boxes people put us in. But at the end of the day, when you come to the door with a common sense solution, not a D versus R or this versus that, but hey, like, what do you think about this idea? People get excited, and that's a really great way to build power in your community. So when you're out knocking doors for this, I mean, it is honestly one of the most empowering things to do. So definitely sign up. Don't exit out of this live stream until you've made the commitment to do something to win this campaign. If you're in the state, you should go knock doors. If you're just around the state, you should also go knock doors. If you're very far away and you can't get over there, donate money.
Donate
It's
money.
all going to be
Yep.
helpful in protecting the vote.
Buy water bottles for some door knockers. It's
Yep.
hot out here. We're over 100-degree days already. But that's never stopped us before.
A dry heat or humid heat? What's better?
You know what they always say, it's a dry heat. So get out and knock the doors.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I couldn't agree more that outside of what we see on the news, right, in these debates, or TikTok and our algorithms, when you really get out at your doors, when you get out into your community, when you talk to your neighbors, we agree on so much. And this Protect the Vote AZ stuff, when it comes to mail-in voting, when it comes to voting early in person, common sense voter ID, this is something that you and your neighbors agree on. And so if you're looking for some hope core right now, if you're looking for some common ground in a moment where it feels like there's not much, this is the place to find it. So don't let it pass you by, you know. I know I'll be signing up to knock doors. Hopefully I'll get to see some of you out there. Maybe we can get a little crew going. But we can't unless you sign up to volunteer. So go to Protect the Vote AZ, make your commitment to get out there, sign if you haven't already. And if you're in another state, like we said, pitch in some money. Folks need popsicles and water bottles.
Literature,
and
all
they're out
of it.
there. What is the other one? What else do we need at the doors?
Literature,
Literature.
Right? Of course.
What else, Aaron? What do we need at the doors?
Literally just your presence, right? Like you got to get out there, get on the ground, make your voice heard. Go do it.
That's a sweet answer. You're like, your smile, your energy.
Yes. We're going to have a fun time. Deja, Congressman, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you soon.
I'm excited for this next panel. This next panel, we're going to talk about how this ballot initiative is going to impact not just folks across the country in a national way, but also folks specifically in rural Arizona and tribal nations. We have House Minority Leader Oscar de los Santos joining us, Gila River Indian Community Governor Stephen Rowe Lewis, and my good friend Jolly Good Ginger, who has been really fighting the good fight here in the DMV area. So we're going to bring them in momentarily, and we're really going to talk about really the urgency of this mobilization effort and the reason why folks need to go to protectthevoteaz.com or click the QR code to the right of my head, because there are so many barriers to access right now for folks across the country to get to the voting booth, to get to the ballot, to make their voices heard. And what we've seen over the past week is they're trying to make it harder. They're trying to make it harder to vote, especially for folks who in Black and brown communities, in rural communities. They're trying to make you drive further. They're trying to gerrymander these seats across the country. And so that's why what we're doing tonight in Arizona is so important. So yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna, let's bring in Jolly and the rest of them right now if we can. And while we're waiting for all of them to come in and talk about rural communities and tribal nations, I do want you to go to protectthevoteaz.com, make a contribution. It could be any amount, truly, small, large, whatever you can do. Let's do it. Here is House Minority Leader Oscar de los Santos. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
For having me.
Jolly Good Ginger, my good friends right here. Jolly, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, Aaron? How?
I think Jolly, you just muted yourself again accidentally.
All right, am I unmuted now?
Yeah, you're unmuted. I'm going to let you take it from here, Jolly, all right?
All right, thanks, Aaron. Good to see you, by the way.
Good to see you.
So, as somebody who's been, I don't know, out on the streets a lot, um, fighting, using my First Amendment right, to speak out on what I think is wrong in the government, to speak out on what I think is wrong in policy, and to demand better of our elected officials, I think the most important First Amendment right we have is that to vote. I think that if we've learned anything from the Trump presidency, it is you get what you vote for. So it's important to get out and vote. What concerns me right now, and I have two really smart gentlemen here who could articulate this subject way better than me, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, is what concerns me is watching what's happening as we approach the midterms. We just saw the Supreme Court gut the Voting Rights Act, which is a whole conversation by itself. We just seen Louisiana governor declare or write an executive order during a state of emergency to stop an election in progress. Tennessee, Alabama having the same conversation. Other states having the same conversation. So now we zoom in here. We find ourselves in Arizona. You guys are literally on the forefront of this battle. And Governor Lewis, I'll take it to you first. What is your concern as we approach this election, approach election season, especially as it pertains to Arizona and getting out the vote?
Right. Skug Hudnick, Governor Stephen Earl Lewis of the Gila River Indian Community. I think this is what we're hearing throughout tonight's program is that Arizona is a critical state for actions to both encourage voting and, we're seeing efforts to suppress voting. Tribal nations, 22 tribal nations here in home to Arizona are part of that fight. And many of you already know that our tribal members were the last to be granted citizenship in the United States in 1924, which allowed voting in federal elections. But it took another 24 years later that natives in Arizona were permitted to vote in both state and federal elections, everyone, because prior court decisions in Arizona determined that we were under federal, not state guardianship. So we know that the right to vote has been hard fought by our veterans. Native Americans have served the largest percentage of any group in the United States, went over to wars where they weren't even citizens yet. And so we know firsthand what it is to have suppression efforts targeting our tribal communities. And we know how important it is as tribal governments, as a tribal leader, to elect representatives, right, for federal and state office who will sit across us from us at the table and recognize who we are as sovereign and I respect that government to government relationship. And, efforts to require additional identification outside of our tribal IDs would put burdens, right, on our members, right, as natives, enrollment in federally recognized tribes should be sufficient enough to show that we were born in the United States as the First Nations, the indigenous people. Now, efforts, right, to take away mail-in voting or online registration serve only one purpose. I think we all know that, to make it harder for our members to vote with the goal of suppressing our voice.
Governor, I couldn't agree with you more. You've worded that perfectly. That is literally a great setup for me to toss this to you, Representative De Los Santos, because you're there. You're in the governing body, and I know I talked to a lot of Democrats on the Hill. Surprisingly, the Republicans on the Hill don't have a lot of conversations with me, but but I mean, I hear from other Democrats that you understand the urgency of what's happening right now, and that quite frankly, they're after the vote. They're after this election. So, I mean, what can we expect, I guess, from not only our electeds in the federal office, but just across the country? What can we expect to fight back against this?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, thank you, Jolly, and thank you, Governor Lewis. It's a great honor to be here with you today. I want to be very clear about a quote that I think exemplifies what we're up against. One of the Republicans in the Arizona House of Representatives, who's sort of the ringleader on all of the voter suppression, on all of the anti-mail-in voting, on all of the anti-early voting efforts, was in the press quoted as saying he wants to put a, quote, bullet in the head of mail-in voting. I want to repeat that because everybody needs to know what we're up against. A, quote, bullet in the head of mail-in voting. So that is what we're up against. I have been in the legislature for now 4 years, and year after year after year, day after day, we're seeing bills that attack the right to vote in a bunch of different ways, whether it's killing vote by mail or restricting early voting. One of the other things they're trying to do is go back to precinct voting, or all these crazy ideas. They've got dozens and dozens of bills, and we're fighting them left and right. And that's why today is so important. That is why Protect the Vote Arizona is so critical, because we can protect our right to vote and not just always be on defense. And I want to say this is an incredible opportunity because it gives the people the chance to vote on this and to enshrine this in our state laws. And that is how Arizonans have fought and won. When the Republicans in the legislature refused to raise the minimum wage, the people did it at the ballot. When they refused to protect our right to abortion, the people enshrined that right in the Constitution at the ballot. When the Republicans were attacking Dreamers, the people protected Dreamers at the ballot. So this is a battle-tested method on how we can win.
I'm going to say this as a veteran. I participated in the Iraq and Afghanistan. I call them occupations. I no longer refer to them as wars. But I participated in that, and I raised my right hand, and I joined the military. But I also, even prior to doing that, when I turned 18, was required to register in selective service, into the draft. And there was little to no barriers for me to do that. Now they've changed the draft registration to automatic. They automatically have your record. They automatically have your information, and you can automatically be registered to the draft. So they've made it easier to force you to go fight a war. They made it easier to force you to serve in the military, whether or not you volunteer, while simultaneously making it harder to vote in the system you would be defending. Either one of you gentlemen, but how do we defend these actions other than calling them what they are? This is suppressing your vote outright.
Well, I mean, what I wanted to say is, all of these new potential measures, right, are obstacles and they're barriers. In some cases, tribal members would have to travel a significant number of miles to vote in person, right?
Right.
Our elders may not be able to spend an entire day traveling to a polling location hours away and standing in line to vote, even getting there. These aren't measures intended to make voting more transparent. I think we know that our system is already safe. These measures are intended to suppress our voice and to have those decisions of representation made by others. And that's why we're here tonight. So, we have to work together. All of us here tonight, all of you participating, we're relatives here. We're tied together under the Constitution, under the history of the United States. This is probably one of the most pivotal times in history. And if we don't stand up in this next election, this next election will make sure our voices are strong and our voices are counted. When we stand together and fight, we will have lost. And if not, we'd have lost one of the most core foundational rights that we have as citizens, and that's our right to representation. In the end, what I want to say too, which is important though, I know we talk about the politics of it, but really in the end, this is not a partisan issue, right? This effort that we are talking about protects all Arizonans, what we're talking about now, no matter who they ultimately vote for, right? This is the time when positive change starts with movements like this, where each signature that we're talking about is a commitment to work together to protect our communities and to stand together to ensure that our rights are protected.
This is a fight that's been, by the way, getting set up since 2020. There's the claims of a stolen election, and Arizona was on the forefront then. And I think now we're seeing it come to a head where people let this go on too long. So you got a good point. Like, if you don't fight now, there's no fighting later. Go ahead, Representative. I apologize.
Absolutely. No. And I think one of the things to know about what Governor Lewis said is that the vast majority of Arizonans, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, actually vote early and vote by mail. So you're absolutely right. This is not just an attack on one subset of Arizonans. This is an attack on all of our collective rights to vote. And, Jolly, I want to go back to the first question you asked about what are we up against? Because I just remembered one of the big bills that we've had to fight this year, which is they're calling on Congress to repeal the 17th Amendment. What is that? The 17th Amendment is what gives us, everybody in the United States, the ability to vote directly for our U.S. senators. They want to repeal that because they want to give the politicians at the state legislature the right to appoint our U.S. senators, and they're doing that not coincidentally, after Arizona elected Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallegos. So you can read into that what you will.
And I think that's a
Well,
great segment to our next panel, especially because we have Attorney General Chris Mays joining us talking about the legal fight that's going to be happening right now. Governor, Representative Jolly, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really great panel. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm excited to introduce Arizona's Attorney General Chris Mays, Congressman Greg Stanton, Joy Reid, and candidate for Congress Harry Dunn for this next panel to talk about winning the legal and political fights. So Joy, I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thank you very much, Aaron. It is great to be on with all of you. I just saw Jolly go out the door, one of my favorite faves. And so all of you guys are terrific and appreciate all you there. I see my friend Harry Dunn here in the corner with me. And all of you are in this fight for the right reasons. Arizona, back when I was working in campaign politics and took a break from news, it was the state that we had our eye on the Democratic Party side as one of those future purple or blue states. And, you know, in Florida, which is such a problematic and difficult state to do elections in, at the end of that 2004 campaign, where our group, America Coming Together, was sort of watching John Kerry kind of spiral into losing the election, we were like, what do we do with our remaining funds? And the idea that our leadership had in Florida was split the money between Georgia and Arizona, because in our, even back then, we knew those were the next two states. And if we knew that, Republicans knew it too. And their fear of Arizona becoming a blue state that they can no longer get back is part of the reason that they want to subordinate Arizona's voters, who are largely Latino, a group that they thought they could count on because of 2024, but which they're not so sure about. They're not so sure they can trust. And in their mind, there are just too many voters of color in the state of Arizona to let Arizona's 11 electoral votes be up for grabs in an election. They want to lock it down and secure it. The way the representative was talking earlier is they're like, we'll try any scheme. We'll try a scheme where we can end, the direct election of senators and make it so that all we have to do is win one statewide election, have an appointed two appointed senators. Option two is the Supreme Court, where Sam Alito and John Roberts have not only vivisected the Voting Rights Act, essentially turned Section 2 into a zombie and unleashed unlimited partisan gerrymandering so that Republicans can keep permanent control of the Congress by essentially eliminating Black representation in the South. The next thing on their docket is to eliminate the idea that if you have an absentee ballot that is postmarked before Election Day, and it's mailed out and arrives after Election Day, your vote is supposed to count. There's a Mississippi lawsuit saying, no, it should not count. And now, if that goes through, as I expect it will, I believe that the litigants, the Republicans, who I think are coordinating these cases in front of the Supreme Court, they'll probably win. And that means all the regime has to do is control the mail. If you slow the mail down, all of a sudden, all those absentee votes don't count. Because Sam Alito or John Roberts or Clarence Thomas or one of them is going to write a ruling saying that your vote does not count unless it arrives at the election office by Election Day. This is a try everything, everywhere, all at once strategy to prevent accountability. Because what Republicans, including the 6 Republicans on the Supreme Court, who, let's be clear, are partisan actors, not dispassionate interpreters of the Constitution, they have to ensure permanent Republican control, because if anybody in this country at the national level goes into the hands of Democrats, if Harry Dunn wins his seat and he becomes a member of the majority as a Democrat in the House of Representatives, there's going to be hearings. If the Senate flips and goes Democratic, there's going to be hearings. And those hearings are going to uncover more corruption by this regime, more corruption at the DOJ, the Department of Injustice at this point, more corruption, maybe by other members of the House and Senate, and more corruption potentially by the Supreme Court members themselves, Leonard Leo, their funders, all of the people who are colluding to turn this country into Gilead, into the Project 2025 nightmare. And so we have to be vigilant. And Arizona is sitting at the fulcrum of that risk for every single American of every race, creed, color, background, and even party. And even whether you're a conservative or a liberal, if you're MAGA, you're all on the menu, because a small number of billionaires get to control and get to eat and get to get rich, and everyone else gets to be cattle. So we have to fight this fight. If we can win in Arizona, you guys are well on your way with this petition to protect the voters of Arizona. We all understand Arizona to be at the fulcrum of political change in this country. It has been since '04 when I worked in politics. It still is now. Win in Arizona, and that victory will cascade all over the United States. Throwing it back to you, Aaron.
Thanks, Joy. Well, Attorney General Mays, I want to ask you, what are the legal kind of ramifications concerning a ballot initiative like this? What do folks need to know when it comes? Because ultimately, it will be challenged by Republicans if this gets on the ballot and if it passes via vote.
Well, I obviously there are certain things that the initiative backers, those who support this initiative, have to do to get it on the ballot and to get it passed. And so there's all of that. But I think it's important to back up a little bit and to some of Joy's points and say, this really is about protecting American democracy. And in Arizona, we love to vote by mail, and that is how we vote. I mean, 80 to 85% of Arizonans vote by mail, and people don't realize this, but it was actually the Republican Party that engineered vote by mail in 1992 in Arizona. So the Republicans created vote by mail, thankfully, and it has become wildly popular. So if there is an attempt to undermine this initiative or even to defeat this initiative, I don't think anybody can defeat this initiative because Arizonans love vote by mail and believe in the right to vote early, also in person early, which would be protected. Then they're asking for it. That would be tremendously unpopular. So this is a part of, I think, the effort of Arizonans to push back against the Trump administration, which has systematically been trying to undermine the right of all Americans to vote. And all you have to do is look at some of the lawsuits that I and the other Democratic attorneys general have had to file or defend against. Donald Trump just tried to seize voter rolls throughout this country. And in Arizona, we fought back and we said, no, you're not getting a hold of our voters' personal identifying information and the voter rolls. And we won in front of a Republican Trump-appointed judge who said, no, Donald Trump, you can't have the voter rolls in Arizona. We also have fought back against the executive order by Donald Trump that would have essentially tried to seize control of the entire election system, which is to be run by the states pursuant to law and the Constitution. And so, I think this is an effort by Arizonans to ensconce and permanently ensconce the right to vote by mail, which is fabulously popular.
Now, Congressman Stanton, I got to ask you, what does the coordination look like between federal officials and state officials when it comes to administering an election like this? And you guys right now are facing the Save America Act in Congress. They're really pushing that hard. What are you doing to combat it on the federal level to make sure that it's not a law nationwide?
Well, first off, thanks to Attorney General Chris Mays, because she has filed many lawsuits protecting the rights of Arizonans against this administration and their overreach. And she's won almost all of them for the betterment of our state and for the betterment of the people of our country. So, Attorney General, really appreciate your leadership in doing that. When we get the majority in Congress, and I think we will after the November elections, we'll be able to do a lot more from our perch other than fighting on the House floor. We'll actually be able to affirmatively move forward with positive legislation. But in the meantime, having the attorneys generals fight so hard for our shared values is very important. Look, in Arizona, we are sick and tired of the big lie. No state has been just hammered by it, exhausted by it, and that's all it is a big lie. The elections here in Arizona have been run well forever. And they continue to be run, and they never weren't run well. even when Donald Trump lost, and the fact that he can't get over it, and the fact that he's putting our fellow Arizonans through this over and over and over again, and sadly getting so many people to lose confidence in elections, not because of anything that election officials have done. They've behaved 100% professional, even in the worst of times, even their death threats that they were facing after the last round of the big lie coming our way. We all respect them so much. Enough is enough, and that's what this initiative really is about, as Arizonans coming together and saying enough is enough. And Joy talked a little bit about, the importance of Arizona. We are probably the most important battleground state in the country, as purple can be. But as long as Republicans keep putting up these election denialism type candidates, we get great elected officials like Chris Mays in statewide office as a result of that. So we don't want them to continue to do it. We want to get back to normalcy in politics, but as long as they're going to behave this way, we're going to keep winning elections here in Arizona. And it's unclear to me whether or not, when Protect the Vote does pass, whether it benefits Democrats more than Republicans. I don't know, but who cares? We just want people to be able to vote as easily, as efficiently. We want to increase access to the ballot box. And this massive voter suppression effort that we're seeing. And of course, Aaron, you mentioned it, Save America Act is the latest version of it, is to try to make voting more difficult for people, particularly making it almost impossible to vote by mail, because you'd have to show proof of citizenship each and every time. You have to put a certified copy of your birth certificate in with your ballot every time you mail it. We know exactly what the purpose is to make people discouraged and to make it significantly less participation in elections. That's not acceptable to me. It's not acceptable to all the people on this call, and it's not acceptable to both Democrats and Republicans here in the state of Arizona. And so, the popular opinion is on our side in this fight against the Save America Act. And I don't know what, Donald Trump keeps pushing it. Good luck. I don't think it's going to get through Congress.
Now, Harry, I got to ask you, because the congressman made a point about the big lie, and if there's anyone who's fought against the big lie, it really has been you, whether defending the Capitol against folks empowered by that big lie on January 6th or now running for Congress. Can you talk a little bit more about what that fight looks like from your perspective as not just a Capitol police officer, but also now as a congressional candidate?
Yeah, no, thank you for that, and AG Mays, and thank you for the work that you're doing. This is my second round running for Congress because the threat is still persistent and it still exists. Obviously, we talk about, and why people know me is because of January 6th. I had the opportunity to go out in 2024 out to Arizona to do some campaigning for Kamala Harris, to do some campaigning for Ruben Gallego, and just being out there on the road. And one of the things that I said out there, and I'll say this continually, is I blame Kari Lake, and people like that. So it's not only the policies, that the fraudulent policies that they claim exist, but it's also the rhetoric that exists, the rhetoric that Kari Lake spewed that led to January 6th, that led to people like Representative Biggs and Representative Gosar failing to vote to certify the elections, that lit that incensed people that actually believed their vote was stolen when they combed it over and over. And Arizona was ground zero for actually having every damn vote certified and scrutinized and with a fine-tooth comb. But they weren't able to find any fraud. It doesn't exist. And yet that didn't stop Kari Lake from saying that it did exist. And no matter what they found, no matter what, it wasn't acceptable enough for her. They're not doing any type of movement or action that they're doing to save America. They're trying to save their own asses. Can I say that? So they're trying to save their political careers. They're trying to save their political futures. The SAVE Act, there is, Bill Barr said it himself, and we all saw it with the January 6th hearing. There has been no widespread fraud. The amount of people that vote fraudulently is lower than I don't want to keep amplifying their points, but like the Representative Greg Stan said, it doesn't matter if it benefits Republicans, if it benefits Democrats. We want people to actually have the right and safe access to vote. So yes, not only does not restricting people to vote disenfranchise people, but it also continues to create these conspiracy theories that led to what happened on January 6th, and that they're still pushing.
January 6th this year, Donald Trump put a website up saying that he won the election, that the people there on January 6th were wrong, were the patriots, the police were the bad guys. So it's rhetoric that continues like that to happen. So we need to meet that rhetoric with law and principle and action that the state of Arizona is doing. And I am a proud supporter of the Vote Act. So we need to make sure that save our vote. We need to make sure that we get this across the finish line.
Thank you so much, Harry, Joy, General Mays, and Congressman Stanton. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The next panel we have, and before we get there, I do want to make sure, once again, hit that QR code to the right of me or go to protectthevoteaz.com and make a donation. Sign up to volunteer today. I want to bring in my two good friends, David Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen, along with Congressman Ro Khanna, who's really been on the front lines fighting for the release of the Epstein files right now in Congress and is doing fantastic work. David, Brian, how are you guys?
Aaron, thanks for having us.
Honestly, I want to kind of just start, and we're going to bring in the congressman momentarily and allow you guys to chat as well. But could you, from both of your guys' perspective, what does this fight look like on the digital scale?
Listen, one of the things I've been thinking about is this is the way you would expect people to behave if they've given up on actually winning on the issues. There's no attempt to say, hey, gas being up 66% since January is a great thing. Vote for us. That's not happening because it simply wouldn't work. And so we see these different efforts. In some states, it's being done one way. In other states, it's being done with redistricting, or is it restricting access? These are the tactics you use if you're sort of conceding that you've lost on winning the will of the people by convincing them that your policies are good. So, Brian, that's been my focus in explaining to my audience the reason that we're seeing all of these efforts.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, look, we have contended with either distractions or outright illegal or corrupt behavior at the hands of this administration, all to make sure that we don't recognize what it is that they're doing at the heart of this administration, which is basically trying to reward themselves by undermining our elections, reward themselves for taking action in the federal government that is aggressively unpopular, whether it's on healthcare, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on the Iran war, whether it's on the Epstein files, you name it. And to that end, we're honored here to have Congressman Ro Khanna, who, I just mentioned the Epstein files, has been a leading voice in making sure that we get some transparency and accountability on that issue. So, Congressman, thanks so much for joining us here.
Thank you, Brian. 2 times in the same day. I appreciate you. I appreciate your voice and Aaron's, and of course David Pakman's. You guys are just killing it out there, and I just want to thank Yasmin for putting this all together. But this is such a key issue. The Supreme Court decision was just a blow to the entire civil rights movement. And the fundamental issue is not one of legal theory. It's actually not even one of interpretation of the Constitution. It comes down to a very simple fact. Do you believe racism still exists in parts of America? Do you believe we still have racially polarized voting? And anyone who has been to Mississippi or South Carolina or the places where these districts are in question knows that you have racially polarized voting, knows that race is a factor in how people vote. And saying that race should not be a factor doesn't make race not a factor. That may be the ideal, that we want to get to a world where we are post-racial, but for now, race still makes a difference. And what the court decision would do is eliminate hard-fought districts, Clyburn's district, Benny Thompson's district. Clyburn didn't get a district in South Carolina. We didn't have a black member of Congress for almost 100 years, till 92. Eliminate those districts, which may not affect us in 2026. It may not affect our current members, but would totally squelch the next generation of black leadership coming from the place that gave us the civil rights movement. It is a enormous blow. We should be much more vocal about it, mobilizing and explaining people why this is reversing the civil rights movement. And it needs to be one of our highest priorities to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act when we have a trifecta again, to have term limits on the Supreme Court, to expand the court, and to fight the structural power that is trying to reverse the civil rights movement.
If I could ask a quick question on that, I'm actually glad that you brought up expanding the Supreme Court because, we spend so much time trying to make everything work that we need to make work, meaning we have to elect a Democratic majority in the House, a Democratic majority in the Senate, a Democratic president. When we do that, we then have to, all the stars have to align so the filibuster could be eliminated. Then we have to pass a new Voting Rights Act that actually fixes a lot of the issues that we're contending with right now. But on the other end of all of that, all of those things that have to go perfectly, is a 6-3 conservative court that has just shown us, broadcast, that they're willing to strike down any law that doesn't comport with their political ideology. And so I think it's important to talk about this now because when we actually do get power back, and I believe we will get power back, it feels like it would be a waste of time to spend what little time we have negotiating whether or not we should do this as opposed to just doing this. And so my question for you, Congressman, is do you think that Democrats are on board with this idea of actually exercising our full breadth of power when we get it, so that we're not in a position where we were in the beginning of Joe Biden's presidency, where, okay, we finally have a Democratic majority, we can eliminate the filibuster, and then, we have a couple of Democrats who aren't willing to do it, and then suddenly, the broadest agenda that we have doesn't get passed.
Democrats are not only on board, that is their expectation, that we will exercise power in an energetic, assertive, and bold way with an energetic constitutionalism. They don't want the next Democratic president saying, well, I'm just going to ignore what Congress says as a statute and I don't care. But they want the Democratic president to use every legal means to get the agenda through. Well, there's no constitutional prohibition against eliminating the filibuster. There's no constitutional prohibition against invoking Section 1881 to start to expand Medicare to populations that have emergency needs. You can do that on day one. There is no constitutional provision that prohibits calling a constitutional convention in the first 100 days of an administration that says we're going to overturn Citizens United, and if Congress isn't going to do it, we're going to start debating this in state legislatures across the country. There is no constitutional prohibition on term limits on the Supreme Court or expanding the Supreme Court. So we need to exert our powers in the most assertive, affirmative ways, also holding people accountable while recognizing that it's a constitutionalism, and that's what differentiates us from Trump.
I'll remind our audience that 500,000 signatures are what are being sought here in Arizona. It would be great to be safe to get 600,000. You want to have some buffer there. And if people want to find out about volunteering and getting involved, you can go to protectthevoteaz.com. Congressman, I'm reminded of this. My lawyer, I would never say this, but my lawyer friends say there's this phrase in the legal world: when the facts aren't on your side, you argue process. And when process isn't on your side, you argue facts. We have a situation right now where the Republican Party is not arguing facts, and they are not trying to make it easier and more and simpler to go out and vote and express what may be your displeasure or maybe your pleasure with what's going on. What do you take from the behavior of the Republican Party in all of these different states to grasp at whatever straw they have to maybe make it harder for people to vote and express their will and their disapproval for what this administration is doing? Do those seem like the actions of a party confident that they've done a good job?
Well, obviously, they know that the president's approval numbers are below 40%. They know they're going to lose the House and have a decent chance of losing the Senate. But it goes beyond that. The astute observers of American politics, I think, see voters under 50 and believe that there is an emerging multiracial coalition for economic justice, that the American population wants a cohesive multiracial democracy, and they want a democracy that's going to have universal health care, Medicare for all, child care, tax on billionaires, a new social contract. And that the only way truly to prevent that without kind of unicorns like Donald Trump, who managed to charm by talking about forgotten Americans, is to entrench a counter-majoritarian power structure, whether that's on the Supreme Court, whether it's the Senate filibuster, whether it is making it harder to vote. And I believe there has been an intentional project among people who see the trend lines to make that counter-majority power entrenchment a reality.
And Congressman, I know that a lot of people see this, and especially as we've seen the Supreme Court gut Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and basically topple the entirety of the Voting Rights Act, now that Section 2 is basically the last leg standing, there is a sense of despair among people who see the Republicans acting so quickly in states across the Deep South, for example, Louisiana, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, you name it. What do you say to those people who kind of see a possible retrenchment to what they might have experienced in life in America pre-1965 and kind of see it rearing its head again? What do you say to those people who feel kind of a sense of despair that I think Republicans are hoping people will feel?
I understand the anger and the frustration of what it feels like to go backwards. I mean, we're talking about 250 years of slavery. We were talking about the scars of 100 years of Jim Crow. We're talking about Reconstruction that was cut short with the Southern Redemption. We're talking about the scars of colonialism. And my grandfather spent 4 years in jail as part of Gandhi's independence movement. And many of us were born thinking that this nation had overcome those ugly strains after decades and decades of sacrifice, and that we were the beneficiaries of moving towards Frederick Douglass and King and Obama's dream of a multiracial democracy. Well, it turns out we were wrong in thinking it would be as easy a path. But we can take a heart and courage from the fact that our path still is not as hard as John Lewis's or Jim Clyburn's or Dr. King's or people who have had to endure much worse, and that we now need to do our part in this relay to fight for justice, and that duality has been America's story, but with perseverance and fight, we managed to keep inching it forward, even if it's not a linear line.
Congressman Ro Khanna, Brian Tyler Cohen, the website people can go to learn more about this is protectthevoteaz.com. And I guess to be polite, I should throw it back to our great host today, Aaron Parnas. Oh, Aaron's gone. There he is.
Hey, folks. Yes, thank you guys so much, all three of you, for joining us tonight. Congressman David, Brian, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And as we wrap up this evening, I want to bring back Congresswoman Yassamin Ansari, who has been the leading voice in this fight. I know a lot of you guys have been with us since the start of this panel at just about 2 hours ago. And if you haven't yet, go to protectthevoteaz.com. or the QR code. Congresswoman, how are you feeling tonight? And finish it off for us.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you to everyone who is still tuned in. I'm feeling so excited, so hopeful. It's been a crazy day. I'm here in DC because today we had another deposition as part of our Epstein investigation. I'm on the House Oversight Committee, and we had the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, in front of us talking and lying over and over again to the American people. And I have been witnessing and experiencing the most egregious cover-up in American history. And that cover-up and what the Trump administration is doing in regards to their refusal to bring justice to the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein is just one part of the story. And there is this massive trend right now with the Trump administration of distraction after distraction after distraction as they go after our rights, as they take away our health care, as they make life more expensive and less affordable for everyday Americans. We are in the midst of a wildly illegal and reckless war with no end in sight. And then, of course, as we've been talking about tonight, we are seeing Donald Trump and Republicans all over the country go after our voting rights, whether it's the SCOTUS decision from last week to Republicans in Arizona who are trying to end mail-in voting and suppress voters. So it is campaigns like this and movements like this, Protect the Vote Arizona, that keep me so hopeful. And that's why I'm so excited to be chairing this campaign and why I'm so excited to have so much support from around the country, because what happens in Arizona, just like what happened in California with redistricting, just like what's been going on in Virginia, we have to lead in this fight, and we have to show that when people come together and organize from the ground up, we can win. And so I just want to end with one more huge call to action tonight for anyone still tuned in. Please get involved. We have huge goals we have to hit. 500,000 signatures by July 2nd. We're going to make it happen, but we're going to need all of you to be part of that fight to make it happen. So please go to protectthevoteaz.com, sign up to volunteer, grab a petition, signature sheets from us, and collect them in your neighborhoods, at coffee shops, at local businesses, and get them back to us. And if you're not in Arizona, please chip in. If you're still watching, if you could chip in $5, $10 today to help our efforts to make sure we can get people on the ground knocking on doors to collect these signatures, we know we can win, and we will stand up to Donald Trump. We will stand up to extremism, and we're going to win. I know we're going to win.
We're going to win. Heard it here first.